twin moons of Velira hung low that night, their silver light falling upon the marble courtyard of the alien palace. Princess Lyris stood silent, her golden eyes fixed on the council before her. They whispered among themselves. Mocking her softly, she had been born a royal. Blessed with beauty and grace, yet cursed with one flaw. She could not bear a child. In the empire of Velira, infertility was seen as a weakness, a sign of broken blood. The nobles laughed behind silk masks. Calling her the empty one, her father, the High King, looked at her with quiet shame, and when the council proposed to send her away, to live among humans as a gift, no one defended her. It was meant to be a joke. The idea was cruel and clever. Let her serve a human, one noble had said. Let her clean their machines and learn what true worthlessness feels like. The court laughed, their jeweled robes rustling like snakes. And so the decision was made. 2 days later, Lyris was taken aboard a silver shuttle and sent to the border world of Carthon 5. It was a dry planet, half desert, half wasteland, ruled by the humans' Terran Federation. Her escort left her at a small human outpost, one building under the red sun. There she met Captain Elias Ward, the man she was gifted to. Elias was not like the humans she had heard about. He didn't bow or gawk at her alien form. He simply nodded and said, "You must be tired. There's water inside. Come in." Lyris hesitated, unused to such calm words. Humans were supposed to be greedy, loud, and foolish. Yet this one seemed quiet, like someone who had seen too much loss. Inside, the room smelled of iron and dust. Elias poured her a cup of clean water. "You don't have to serve me," he said gently. "They told me what they did to you, and I don't want a servant." His voice was deep, warm. It didn't cut through her like the voices of her kind. It almost healed. Lyris watched him work in silence, repairing strange metal tools. His hands were rough, scarred, but careful. Every time he looked at her, she felt something shift in her chest. It was not love, not yet, but a strange calm, a feeling she hadn't known before. At night, she sat by the window and looked at the moons of this new world. The desert wind carried the soft hum of human machines. She thought of her people, their laughter, their cruelty, their cold perfection. She whispered, "I am not broken," though no one was there to hear. Days passed. Elias treated her as an equal, offering her books, tools, and even music. She began to help him fix machines, learning how human technology hummed with strange life. He was patient when she asked questions. He even smiled once, a small smile, but it made her heart skip one evening. While the sun melted behind the red dunes, Elias found her sitting near the garden. She had planted a seed from her homeworld there, a glowing blue sprout that shimmered faintly in the dark. "It's beautiful," he said softly. "It will die soon," she replied. "It needs starlight for my world. Then we'll give it new light," he said, placing a solar lamp beside it, and under that man-made light, the alien flower began to live again. That night, Lyris dreamed of home. She saw the faces of those who laughed at her. She saw her father turn away, and then she saw Elias's hand reaching out to her through the darkness. When she woke, tears had fallen down her pale cheeks. She rose quietly and stepped outside. Barefoot on the cold sand, the air shimmered around her. Something deep inside her chest pulsed, slow and warm. For a moment, she thought it was her own heart, but it wasn't. It was different. It was smaller, faster, like the rhythm of a second heartbeat. Lyris pressed her hand to her stomach. Her golden eyes wide. "No," she whispered. Trembling, it couldn't be. Her kind had told her she could never bear life, but the warmth grew stronger, spreading through her veins like liquid light. She felt it, a spark alive, moving a child. Far inside the outpost, Elias stirred in his sleep. A faint energy ripple passed through the room, making the machines flicker. He rose and looked out the window. He saw her, standing under the moons, glowing faintly. "Lyris?" He called softly. She turned toward him, her face pale, eyes full of something he couldn't name. Fear and wonder mixed. "What's happening?" he asked, stepping closer. Her lips trembled. "I don't know," she whispered. "But something inside me just woke up." The night fell silent again. Only the desert wind moved, carrying with it the beginning of something that would change both their worlds. Lyris looked up at the moons one last time. Her heart beat in rhythm with the small pulse inside her, and for the first time in her life, she didn't feel empty. She felt alive, she felt full, and the stars above seemed to whisper her name. Morning came softly over Carthon 5. Painting the desert gold, Lyris sat by the window, her hands pressed over her stomach. Feeling that faint, strange rhythm, the pulse was still there, light as a whisper, impossible yet real. She was terrified to tell Elias, terrified of what it might mean. Her kind would call her cursed, but deep inside, a small part of her heart whispered that it was something sacred. Elias walked in carrying a tray of food. He looked tired but calm, his shirt half unbuttoned. Grease stains on his hands. "Did you sleep?" he asked, setting the tray down. Lyris nodded weakly. Not trusting her voice, he smiled. That quiet human smile that didn't mock or command. "Eat something," he said. "You'll need strength if you plan to help me fix the water lines." She blinked, confused. "You want my help?" He shrugged. "You're smarter than half the crew I used to command." "Why wouldn't I?" For a moment she just stared at him. No one had ever said such words to her, not even her father. She had always been the barren one, the useless princess now. For the first time, she felt useful. The days that followed were simple but new. Elias taught her how to repair circuits, how to weld broken metal, how to cook human food. She laughed for the first time in years when she accidentally burned a piece of bread. Elias laughed too, shaking his head. "We'll call it alien toast," he said with a grin. Lyris didn't understand the joke, but his laughter filled the empty places in her chest at night. They would sit by the glowing blue flower she had planted. It had grown taller, its petals bright as moonfire. Lyris whispered to it sometimes in her language. Elias didn't understand the words, but he could feel the peace in her voice. "You know," he said one night, back on Earth, "people say talking to plants helps them grow." Lyris smiled faintly. "Maybe they listen," she said, her voice soft like falling sand. But the strange warmth in her body was growing stronger each day. Sometimes she would wake in the middle of the night and see faint light flowing under her skin. Other times she felt small vibrations in the air when she breathed. She tried to hide it from Elias, not wanting to worry him until one evening. The outpost alarms went off. Elias rushed into the lab, scanning the monitors. A strange energy source was being detected, from inside the base. The readings pointed straight to Lyris's room. He ran there, heart pounding. She was on the floor, trembling, her body glowing faintly blue. "Lyris," he shouted, dropping beside her. Her golden eyes fluttered open, filled with fear. "It's happening again," she whispered. "I can't stop it." Elias looked at the screen in his hand. The scanner showed something incredible. 2 energy signatures inside her. 1 alien, 1 human, perfectly in sync. He froze, his throat dry. "Lyris, there's a heartbeat." Her body went still. She looked up slowly, voice trembling. "That's not possible." "I know," he said. "But it's real." They sat there in silence. The hum of machines filling the room. Elias finally spoke. "Whatever it is, we'll face it together." Lyris's eyes softened, a single tear falling down her cheek. "No one has ever said that to me," she whispered. "Then they should have," Elias replied quietly. Over the next few days, he monitored her carefully. He adjusted the outpost sensors to hide the energy readings. He told the supply ships not to approach, claiming there was radiation from the storm. He brought her warm food, checked her health, made sure she rested. In return, Lyris told him stories of her world, of golden towers built above the clouds, of oceans made of glass, of songs that only the royal blood could hear. Elias listened, fascinated, and sometimes he would tell her about Earth, about rain, about snow, about children running through green fields. Lyris would close her eyes and imagine it, her lips curling into the smallest smile. One afternoon, a storm rolled across the desert. Winds howled, lightning cracked, and the skies turned crimson. The power went out. Plunging the base into darkness, Elias grabbed a lamp and went to check the generator. Lyris followed, worried. When a flash of lightning hit nearby, the ground shook. Elias stumbled, but Lyris caught him, her hand glowing faintly blue again. The shockwave stopped midair. Like the energy around her had absorbed it, Elias stared at her in awe. You stopped that," he said. "I don't know how," she breathed. Her hands shaking, he placed his hand gently over hers. "Then maybe it's time we find out," he said. That night the storm calmed, but neither of them could sleep. Elias sat beside her, studying the faint glow that pulsed from her skin. "It's beautiful," he said softly. "It's dangerous," she replied. "Maybe," he said. "But so is everything worth protecting." Lyris turned to look at him. In that moment she saw not a human soldier, not a stranger, but a man who had chosen to stand beside her even when the stars themselves turned against her. She reached out, touched his face. "You are strange." "Elias Ward," she said quietly. He smiled. "You're not the first to say that." Outside, the storm clouds parted and moonlight filled the small room. The flower by the window bloomed again, glowing brighter than ever, and deep inside her, the small heartbeat grew stronger. It was alive, truly alive, for the first time. Lyra stopped being afraid. She whispered to the life inside her. "I don't know what you are, little one," she said, "but you will never be alone." Elias heard her, his chest tightening. He looked out at the endless desert and whispered back, "Neither will she." As dawn came, the desert was silent, peaceful. The machines hummed softly. Lyra sat watching the sunrise, her hand on her stomach, her heart full of warmth, and Elias standing beside her finally understood. This wasn't just an accident. This was the beginning of something greater than either of them. A child of two worlds, a spark of unity born from kindness. And as the first rays of light touched their faces, both of them silently promised they would protect it no matter what came next. The nights on Carthon 5 were never quiet anymore. The hum of the machines mixed with the sound of Lyris's uneven breathing. She could feel it, the life growing inside her, stronger every day. Sometimes when she closed her eyes, she felt warmth spreading through her body. Sometimes she could even hear a faint sound inside her mind, like a whisper calling her name. Elias stayed awake most nights now, watching over her. He had built a small scanner from old human tech to monitor her health. But what the device showed made no sense. 2 heartbeats, 2 DNA codes. 1 human, 1 alien. Both perfectly synchronized. He stared at the flickering screen, whispering, "This shouldn't be possible." Yet it was there. Glowing bright as truth, Lyris could see the worry in his eyes. "You think it's wrong," she said softly. Sitting near him, he shook his head. "No, just new. The first of its kind." She looked away, her fingers brushing the soft blue glow under her skin. "If they find out," she whispered, "they'll destroy us both." Elias looked at her, his jaw tight. "Then they'll have to get through me first." For days they kept it secret. Elias sent fake reports to the alien envoys who came to inspect the outpost. He told them Lyris was adjusting to human food, studying human systems, but suspicion was growing among the aliens. They could sense something different, an energy signature that didn't belong. And rumors had begun to spread among the stars. Whispers that the barren princess was glowing again. Lyris grew weaker. Her powers became unstable. Sometimes lights would flicker when she was near. Other times the machines hummed like they were alive. Elias tried to stay calm, but fear crept into his voice. He didn't know if her body could handle what was happening. One evening she screamed. Elias rushed in to find her floating above the bed, light pouring from her eyes. Her voice echoed in 2 tones, hers and something else. "Help me," she gasped. Clutching her stomach, he grabbed her hand. Trying to pull her back down, the glow faded, but the air around her still shimmered with energy. When it was over, she lay trembling in his arms. "I saw something," she whispered. "What did you see?" He asked quietly. "A world of fire and light," she said, and a voice that said, "I am not supposed to exist." Elias held her close. "Then we'll make a place where you do." The next day, the alien inspection crew arrived early. 3 tall figures in black armor entered the base, their eyes cold and silver. "We've detected an energy surge," the leader said. "Show us your generator." Elias led them away from Lyris's room, trying to stay calm. He explained it was a system malfunction, nothing more. But one of the aliens scanned the air and frowned. "The readings, they're biological," he said, "from something alive." At that moment, a faint sound came from down the hall, a soft heartbeat echoing through the metal walls. The aliens turned sharply, weapons drawn. Elias's heart raced. He stepped in front of them. "You're not going in there." The leader raised his blaster. "Move aside, human." Before he could speak, the lights flickered. A wave of blue energy surged through the building. The walls glowed, the air pulsed, and every weapon powered down instantly. Lyris stepped into the hallway, her eyes glowing gold, her voice calm. "You will not touch him," she said. The aliens froze, unable to move. It wasn't fear, it was something deeper. As if the space around her refused to obey their will, the leader struggled to speak. What are you?" Lyris placed her hand over her stomach. "I am becoming something your kind never believed possible," she said. The alien scanner beeped rapidly, showing impossible readings, hybrid energy, he whispered. Horrified human and Valerian merged. The others took a step back, fear spreading across their faces. This breaks every law, the leader hissed. Every sacred rule. Elias moved beside her, his hand steady on his weapon. Then maybe your rules were wrong, he said. The aliens backed away slowly, their devices sparking from the interference. One turned and ran for the ship. The leader glared at Lyris. You've doomed yourself, princess, he spat. Lyris's voice was soft but unshaken. No, I've saved myself. When they were gone. The silence returned. Elias slumped against the wall. Breathing hard, that was close, he muttered. Lyris sat down beside him, exhausted. They'll send others, she said. Stronger ones. He looked at her, eyes full of fierce resolve. Then we'll be ready. That night they didn't sleep. They worked together, packing supplies, preparing the rover. Elias installed shields around the outpost. Masking its energy signature, Lyris watched him, her heart heavy but full of strange warmth. In the soft glow of the blue flower, she said quietly, You could leave. Elias, they're coming for me, not you. He looked up sharply. You think I'd ever leave you? His tone was quiet but strong. You're my family now. The words struck her like lightning. Family. A word she thought she would never have. Tears filled her golden eyes, she whispered. Then I'll never let them hurt our child. As dawn broke, Lyris stood on the small hill outside the base. The wind carried the scent of dust and metal. She looked up at the pale sun rising through the sandstorm. Her hands rested gently over her stomach, feeling the faint thump of the life inside, the child that shouldn't exist, the child that would change everything. Behind her, Elias stepped out, his weapon slung over his shoulder. Ready? He asked. She turned to him, her face calm, glowing faintly in the morning light. Yes, she said softly, because now, I know why I was sent here. As they walked toward the horizon, the wind rose again, carrying a sound faint and distant, a whisper soft and warm, like the voice of a child not yet born. It said one word over and over, mother, and somewhere deep in her soul, Lyris smiled. For the first time, she didn't feel cursed. She felt chosen. The horizon of Carthon 5 glowed red that morning. It wasn't sunrise, it was fire. Alien ships were descending, silent, dark shapes cutting through the thin clouds. Lyris stood beside Elias on the rocky cliff above the outpost, her eyes wide, her hands shaking. They've found us, she whispered. Elias tightened his grip on his rifle, his face calm but pale. Then we run. They had been hiding for 10 days since the inspection. Elias had jammed communication beacons, blocked scanners, and changed signal codes, but now, the hunters had arrived, not diplomats, not soldiers. These were Valerian purifiers, elite enforcers sent to erase what should not exist. They were trained to hunt their own kind, and anything that defied the ancient laws. Lyris could already feel their presence in the air. A cold pressure pressed against her mind, a whisper of fear and control. She knew that feeling, the psychic mark of her people's high command. They're using mind signals, she said, clutching her head. Elias nodded grimly. Then we'll have to stay quiet and move fast. They packed what little they could, food packs, water tubes, and the small glowing flower Lyris had grown. She refused to leave it behind. They climbed into the sand rover and sped into the desert, the engine roaring as dunes rolled beneath them like waves. Behind them, bright beams of light split the sky, the purifiers scanning the surface. Lyris kept looking back, fear flickering in her golden eyes. They'll track me, she said. My blood carries their code. Elias reached over, taking her trembling hand. Then I'll break that code, he said. His voice was steady, the kind of strength born not from power, but from love. Hours passed, the desert grew wilder, lightning flashing across the pale horizon. The air was thick with static, the sky trembling with sandstorms. Elias drove through it all, never stopping, never turning back. Finally, they reached a valley filled with strange stone ruins, ancient alien structures half buried in the sand. Lyris felt something stir inside her. This place, it's older than my empire, she whispered. I can feel it. They hid the rover beneath a rock ledge and entered the ruins. The walls glowed faintly with old energy lines, whispering in a language neither of them understood. Elias set up a small camp, scanning the area. The baby's heartbeat was stronger than ever now. Lyris could feel its emotions. Calm, curious, aware. It was as if the child understood what was happening. But peace never lasted long on Carthon 5. That night they heard footsteps. Elias grabbed his weapon, pulling Lyris behind a pillar. Shadows moved outside, 5 purifiers. Their armor black as obsidian. Their voices echoed cold and sharp. "Find the hybrid," one said, "leave no trace." Elias's heart pounded. He whispered, "Stay low," but before they could move, one of the hunters raised a scanner. It beeped. Glowing red. "They're here," the alien snarled. In the ruins, the silence shattered. Plasma bolts ripped through the air. Searing the stone walls, Elias returned fire, hitting one in the shoulder. The alien screamed, sparks flying. Lyris crouched beside a broken pillar, clutching her stomach. The baby inside her was glowing, energy pulsing out of her body like a heartbeat made of light. She gasped, "Elias, it's reacting." A blinding wave of blue light exploded outward. The hunters stumbled, their armor crackling, their weapons shorting out. The air trembled as dust and sand lifted around Lyris. Swirling like a storm, Elias shielded his eyes, calling her name, "Lyris. Control it." But she couldn't. The energy grew stronger. Rising from her like a living storm, the ground split open, and the old symbols on the walls began to glow brighter. It was as if the ruins themselves were awakening. Answering the power inside her, one of the hunters raised his hand, shouting in fear, "She carries the star blood." Then in a flash of blue fire he was gone, dissolved into dust. The others fled, leaving their weapons behind, screaming as they vanished into the desert wind. When the light finally faded, Lyris collapsed. Elias caught her before she hit the ground. She was pale, weak, her breathing shallow. He held her close, whispering, it's over now." Her eyes fluttered open. "I didn't mean to," she said softly. "It just happened." "I know," he said, brushing her hair back. "You saved us." They stayed inside the ruins through the night. Elias built a small fire, his mind racing. The words of the hunter echoed in his thoughts. Starblood. He had heard that term once long ago in a report about ancient Valyrian myths, a legend of a child born of 2 worlds destined to reshape the galaxy. He looked at Lyris, sleeping beside him, her skin faintly glowing. Maybe the myth wasn't a story after all. The next morning, Lyris woke weak but calm. She walked to the edge of the ruins and looked out at the sunrise. The desert stretched endlessly before them. Elias joined her, silent. "What if the universe doesn't want this child to live?" she asked quietly. Elias looked at her, then at the rising sun. "Then the universe will have to fight me," he said simply. She smiled faintly at his words. The human's courage, simple, stubborn, unbreakable, made her feel hope again. For a moment everything was quiet, peaceful. Then a small sound came, soft and clear. The heartbeat, stronger now, echoed in both their minds. Lyris gasped. Elias froze. It wasn't just a sound. It was a voice, and light and pure, whispering to them both. "Don't be afraid," it said. "We're not alone anymore." The ruins glowed faintly as the voice faded. Elias stared at Lyris, his voice shaking. "Did you hear that?" She nodded slowly, tears filling her eyes. "Yes," she whispered. "Our child spoke." And in that moment, both of them knew this was no ordinary life. Their child was something more. A bridge between stars, and somewhere above, beyond the fire and storms, the universe itself began to stir. The ruins were quiet the next morning, but the air felt alive. Something ancient hummed in the walls, like the stones themselves remembered what had happened. Elias sat beside the small fire, tools scattered around him, fixing the rover's broken engine. Lyris rested under the archway, her golden eyes distant, her hands over her stomach. The heartbeat inside her was strong now, not only strong, but steady, as if it had its own rhythm of purpose. She looked at Elias and whispered, "The voice I heard, it wasn't only in my head." He looked up, wiping sweat from his brow. "I heard it too," he said, like a child's voice. Soft but clear. Lyris nodded slowly. "It said we are not alone." Elias frowned, glancing at the glowing carvings on the wall. "Maybe it wasn't just the baby." "What do you mean?" she asked. He touched one of the carvings, a spiral surrounded by stars, and it glowed faintly beneath his hand. "These ruins, they're not just old architecture," he said. "They're alive, like they've been waiting for something." Lyris stood and stepped closer, her hand brushing another glowing line. The wall lit up, revealing an image, 2 beings. One human-like, one alien holding a child made of light. A rush of energy passed through her and her breath caught. The prophecy, she whispered, the union of two races. The birth of balance. Elias looked at her, puzzled. You've heard of this before? She nodded, eyes wide. It was a legend told only in whispers, a tale of blasphemy of what must never happen. Her voice shook, because it said that the one who carries the star blood would break the chains of the old order. The walls began to hum louder, the light swirling around them. Symbols shifted and rearranged, forming new shapes. A path, leading to the stars above. Elias backed away, shielding his eyes. Lyris, what's happening? He shouted. She stood still, her hair floating as if touched by invisible wind, her voice distant. It's the temple. It's responding to the child. A beam of light shot upward through the cracked roof, piercing the sky. The ground trembled as dust fell from the ceiling. Elias ran to her, grabbing her hand. We need to move. But Lyris didn't budge. Her eyes were glowing brighter now. Pure gold. Her voice came out layered, two voices in one. Hers and something greater. The stars are listening, she said. The message has been sent miles above Carthon 5 in the emptiness of space. Something ancient stirred, a dormant satellite, older than both human and Valyrian civilization, powered on for the first time in thousands of years. It transmitted a pulse, not of war but of awakening across the galaxy. The signal spread, and on distant worlds old machines flickered back to life, all carrying one message. The starblood has returned. Back in the ruins. The light faded, leaving Lyris weak and trembling. Elias caught her before she fell. Her skin was pale, her pulse unsteady. He laid her down gently, brushing hair from her face. What was that? He whispered. She opened her eyes slowly, I think. Our child just called to the stars. Outside, the desert was changing. The sand shimmered faintly, small orbs of light rising like fireflies. The ancient symbols on the ground glowed in patterns, forming a circle around the ruins. Elias looked out, feeling something vast pressing against his mind. It wasn't hostile. It was curious, like the universe itself had turned its gaze toward them. Then the communicator on his belt crackled to life. Captain Elias Ward, a metallic voice said, "This is Earth Command. We've received an unknown transmission from your sector. Are you responsible?" Elias hesitated, glancing at Lyris. "Not exactly," he said carefully. "But it came from here." The voice on the other end paused. "Whatever it was, it's shaken every sensor we have across 6 systems. Stay where you are. Help is on the way." Elias lowered the comm, his heart pounding. "Help," he muttered. "Or trouble." Lyris tried to sit up. Wincing, "Your people will come," she said. "But so will mine." He nodded grimly. "And neither will understand." That night, as the twin moons rose, Lyris dreamed again. She was standing in the middle of the ruins, but everything was brighter, clean, whole, alive. She saw shapes in the sky, millions of glowing lights descending like stars falling, and in the center stood a small figure, a child made of starlight. Eyes like hers, it reached out a hand and spoke in a voice that shook her soul. "Do not fear, Mother. I'm not your curse. I am your answer." She woke gasping, tears on her cheeks. Elias was beside her, already awake. He had seen it too. The same dream. They stared at each other, realizing the truth. Their child wasn't just a living being, it was communicating. Through dreams. Through light, through energy. The next morning, a distant thunder rolled through the desert, ships entering orbit. Both of them looked up, hearts heavy on the horizon. 2 fleets were arriving. The sleek silver ships of the Valyrian High Command and the dark angular cruisers of the Terran Federation. "Both sides," Elias muttered. "Both think they're coming to save the universe." Lyris looked down at her stomach, feeling the calm heartbeat within. "No," she whispered. "They're coming to stop it." The wind began to howl, sand whipping around them. Elias gripped his rifle, his voice low. "Then we'll protect it, no matter who they send." Lyris nodded, her eyes filled with quiet fire. She pressed his hand to her stomach. "Then let the stars see how strong humans really are," she said. The ruins glowed again, faintly this time, and far above, the awakened machines of the cosmos whispered in unison. "The bridge between worlds has begun." Elias looked at Lyris, exhausted, frightened but radiant, and realized something. They were no longer just running. They were standing at the center of a storm that could reshape everything. And their child, the child that shouldn't exist, had already changed the destiny of two civilizations. The sky above Carthon 5 burned with twin fleets. Human cruisers and alien warships drifted in tense silence, weapons ready but not yet fired below inside the ruins. Elias stood guard with his rifle, every muscle tight, every breath shallow. Lyra sat against the wall, her body trembling, her skin glowing faintly blue. The child was coming, and the universe had chosen the worst possible time. Elias could hear the voices on his comm. Captain Ward, stand down. Evacuation ship incoming. A human officer barked. Another voice, alien, cold, overlapped. By order of the Valerian High Council, surrender the hybrid immediately. He shut the device off, jaw clenched. They're both here, he said. Lyris gasped, clutching her stomach. Elias, it's starting. He knelt beside her, heart racing. Sweat ran down his neck as he remembered every training he'd ever had. None of it helped now. He wasn't a doctor, he wasn't a hero, he was just a man trying to protect the impossible. Outside, the first blast lit the horizon. The war had begun. Human fighters streaked through the clouds, chased by alien interceptors. The sky became a storm of fire and light. The ground trembled, ancient stones cracking under the weight of the battle above. Elias could hear the rumble through the ruins. Each explosion closer than the last, Lyris cried out, her voice breaking. Blue light poured from her skin, illuminating the entire chamber. The air shimmered around her like liquid glass. Elias, she gasped, it's too soon. He grabbed her hand. You're going to be fine, I've got you. But he could see the energy rising around her, something bigger than either of them. The carvings on the walls began to glow again. Brighter, alive, symbols turned like gears, forming a circle of light around her. It wasn't pain anymore. It was power, ancient and divine. The temple itself had awakened to witness the birth. Outside, soldiers on both sides suddenly paused. Their ships shook, their weapons flickered. Every scanner on both fleets showed the same impossible reading, a pulse from the planet's surface. Energy levels rising beyond comprehension, Captain, a human admiral shouted. What's happening down there? No one had an answer. Inside the ruins, Lyra screamed. The floor cracked open, light erupting from beneath her. Elias held her as the world seemed to shake apart. The baby's heartbeat echoed. Not only in the room, but across the sky, it was broadcasting, reaching every mind, every machine, every living soul for a moment. The fighting stopped. Both fleets froze in orbit. Engines silent, every pilot, every soldier, every alien and human felt the same thing, a wave of warmth. It wasn't sound, it wasn't command, it was peace. On Earth, on Valera, and on distant colonies. People stopped what they were doing. Children lifted their heads, feeling something soft in their hearts. The message was clear and wordless. We are one. Elias watched as light filled the temple. He couldn't see her face anymore, only her outline, wings of energy unfolding behind her. She cried out one last time and the air went still. Then, silence. He blinked against the fading light. Lyris lay motionless in his arms, her hair silver with starlight. In her hands was the child, small, glowing faintly gold and blue. Its eyes opened and Elias froze. They were not like any eyes he had ever seen. They were galaxies, tiny swirls of light reflecting the stars. The baby reached a hand toward him. Elias hesitated, then took it. A gentle warmth flowed through him. Memories, feelings, voices. He saw Earth, he saw Valera. He saw millions of lives bound by fear and pride. Then the baby's voice echoed softly in his mind. Don't be afraid, Father, he gasped, tears filling his eyes. Lyris stirred weakly, whispering, Is it alive? He smiled through tears. More than alive, he said. It's perfect. Outside, both fleets still hovered, locked in stunned silence. Then, one by one, the ships powered down. Weapons disengaged, engines quiet. The energy that had erupted from the temple now enveloped the entire planet. Every machine hummed softly under its touch. No one could fight anymore. Their systems simply refused. From orbit, a human general whispered, What have we done? And on the alien command ship, a high priest fell to his knees. The star blood has been born, he murmured. Trembling, Elias held the child close. Its warmth was soft, steady, infinite. Lyris reached up, touching his hand, her eyes full of wonder and exhaustion. Elias, she whispered, it's over. Isn't it? He shook his head slowly. No, he said, voice gentle. It's just beginning. The ruins glowed brighter. The old carvings melted into new patterns, not of war, Not of conquest, but of unity, human and alien. Side by side, Lyris looked around, weak but smiling. "They're watching," she said softly. "Who?" Elias asked. "The stars," she whispered. "They're watching us," he smiled faintly, brushing his thumb over the baby's tiny hand. "Then let them watch," he said, "because this time, we're writing a new story." Outside, the light from the temple rose higher. It reached into space, wrapping around both fleets like gentle fire. And for the first time in history, two civilizations stopped fighting, not from surrender, but from understanding. Elias stepped out into the dawn. Holding the child in his arms, the desert was quiet, the wind cool. Lyris followed slowly, weak but alive. Her golden eyes reflecting the twin suns, they stood together, looking up at the sky that was finally at peace. The child blinked and the clouds parted. Light poured down, warm, endless, healing, Lyris whispered. "He carries the light of both worlds," Elias nodded. "And we'll make sure he never forgets that." The war was over. The story of fear and division had ended. And in its place, under the twin suns of Carthon 5, a new legend was born. The legend of the first Starblood child. The one who silenced two empires with a single cry. The twin suns of Carthon 5 rose over a world reborn. The air shimmered with quiet peace, the smoke of war gone. The ruins that had once been cold and broken now glowed faintly with living light. Elias stood on the stone ledge, the Starblood child cradled in his arms. Watching the sunrise behind him, Lyris walked slowly. Wrapped in a pale cloak, her eyes brighter than ever. It had been 7 days since the battle ended. No soldier had fired a weapon since that moment. The ships above still hovered silently, human and Valyrian both. Their crews waited, not for orders but for understanding. Because the universe had changed and everyone felt it. The child, though small, had grown quickly. Not in body but in awareness. It no longer cried, it simply watched, curious and calm. Sometimes it laughed softly at things neither of them could see. Sometimes it looked toward the sky and smiled as if speaking to stars unseen. Lyris sat near the glowing flower she had planted months ago. It had spread across the ruins now, its blue light blooming in the sand. She whispered softly to the child, her words gentle. "You were their curse, little one, but you became their hope." Elias smiled faintly from behind her. "Sounds like someone else I know." Lyris turned, a small laugh escaping her lips. She looked at him, the human who had been her prison, her protector, and now her forever. Her voice trembled with quiet strength. "I think it's time we go home." The words hung heavy in the air. Home, the place she had been cast out from. Mocked and exiled, Elias hesitated. "You mean Valyria?" She nodded. "Yes, they must see. They must know what we've done." He frowned, glancing at the child. "You think they'll accept this?" She looked at him calmly. "They don't have a choice anymore." By midday, their ship was ready, an old human transport repaired with alien tech. As they rose through the atmosphere, the fleets above shifted aside. No one stopped them, no one fired. Instead, both sides sent silent escorts, human and alien ships flying together. The first act of unity in centuries. The journey through hyperspace felt different this time. The child slept peacefully between them. Wrapped in light, Lyris leaned against Elias, her voice soft. "When I left my world, I was broken," she said. "Now, I'm going back whole." He smiled. "Not because of me." She looked at him, eyes glowing faintly. "Because of us." When the ship finally reached orbit around Valyria, Elias felt his breath catch. The planet shimmered below. Oceans of gold, clouds of crystal blue, cities carved into mountains of light. But around it hovered the Royal Armada, its ships gleaming with power and pride. A voice echoed through their calm, deep and commanding. "This is the High Council of Valyria. Identify yourself." Lyris stepped forward, her tone calm and regal. "Princess Lyris of House Serath," she said. There was silence on the line. Then, a voice full of disbelief. "That cannot be. You were declared dead." "Then let the dead speak," she replied. They landed in the royal courtyard, the same one where she had once stood humiliated. Now every noble, every soldier, every servant gathered in stunned silence. Whispers ran through the air. "The barren one," someone gasped. "She returned," another murmured, "and the human, he's with her." Lyris walked forward, her head held high, the child in her arms. Elias followed close behind, silent but strong. At the top of the marble stairs stood the High King, her father, older, harder, his crown heavy with regret. His voice trembled as he spoke. "Why have you come back?" Lyris lifted her chin. "Because the lie must end." The crowd parted as she stepped into the light. The child stirred and opened its eyes, and the entire court gasped. The baby's gaze was pure starlight, gold and blue, human and alien in one. The air rippled softly with a warmth none of them had ever felt. "The star blood," someone whispered in awe. The king staggered back, his voice breaking. "Impossible." Lyris's voice was calm, but carried across the hall like thunder. "You sent me away as a joke," she said. "You mocked my emptiness. You cursed me for what I could not give." She raised the child high. "Now see what your cruelty has created." Silence filled the hall. The nobles fell to their knees, some weeping, some trembling. The king stepped forward, his armor gleaming. But his eyes filled with tears, he reached out a shaking hand. "Lyris!" "My daughter." For a long moment she said nothing, then she whispered, "I forgive you." She placed the child in his arms, and the king froze. A wave of light flowed from the baby into him. Old wounds healing. Breath steadying, the weight of years lifting, he gasped, dropping to his knees. What is this?" "Hope," Lyris said softly. "The one thing we lost long ago." Elias stepped beside her, watching the nobles bow one by one. Even the guards lowered their weapons. In that moment, the great empire of Valira, proud, cruel, and ancient, bent not to power but to love. Later, as the sun set behind the crystal towers, Lyra stood on the balcony with Elias below. The city glowed brighter than ever before. "Do you think your people will change?" Elias asked quietly. She smiled. "They already have." The child reached,